Hey, what's up again, YouTube? So today's video is going to be a comparison video, like the title says, between the Jebao WP-25 wave maker and the Vortech MP10 wave maker. Now, both of these are really good pumps, very popular in today's reef keeping community. And what I'm going to try to do is just make this strictly a comparison video between the two. I'm not going to try to, say one's better than the other. A lot of times what I see online is, you have proponents for both sides saying this one's way better or this one's way better, but they don't actually have both pumps. They only have one of the pumps, so of course they're going to say that one's better. But I do have both, and I'm just going to try to stick to the basics, what their footprint is inside the tank, how strong they are, what the controllers look like, and just let you, see a bunch of different things about both pumps, and then let you make up your own minds. So I will say that both pumps are good pumps, depending on what application you use them for, they do function well. And it's all going to come down to what you value in a pump. So the thing I'm going to start out with is price, because for a lot of people that's basically what it comes down to before anything else is price. Starting with the Vortech MP10, as most serious reefers know, these Vortech pumps are not cheap. They are very expensive. This is the Vortech MP10. It's not the wireless model, it's just the regular one. And this one retails for $235 US new. If you want the wireless version, that actually is, I think, $285. I think it's another $50 for the wireless version. And basically, the wireless ones just allow you to allow the pumps to communicate with other wireless pumps. So Vortech pumps are definitely expensive. If you want to bump up to the next model, the next model up is the Vortech MP40. And I'm pretty sure that one's in the $400 range. So that one's really expensive. So obviously, that can hold some people back, the prices for these pumps. So yeah, I mean, if you have the means, maybe not be as big a detractor to the pump, but for some budget-minded people or maybe younger kids that don't have quite the funds to splurge on a $400 power head, that can definitely be an inhibiting factor. Going to the Jebao WP-25, these are a little bit newer. They actually haven't been on the market that long. They're made in China. You can't buy them in the United States where I live because I guess there's some sort of patent issue going on right now, because they do resemble the Tunzi nanostream pumps a lot. But anyways, I had to order this from Hong Kong, but this was only $70. I think it was $10 shipping from Hong Kong, but $80 overall is a really good deal on this wave maker. So basically, the question that most people ask is, does the $230 price tag, is that justified? Can I justify spending 3 times as much money on this pump as on this pump? I'm not going to go into that question, like I said. I'm just going to compare the two, and you would have to make up your own mind whether you have the money or whether it warrants spending more money on this pump than this pump. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into the power, the wave makers themselves. I'll show you guys the controllers first, and we'll move on from there. Okay guys, so here are the two controllers next to one another. The Vortech MP10 controllers on the right and the Jebao WP-25 is on the left. As you can see, the Vortech MP10 controller is bigger, and I'll let you know right now that it is much more sturdily made. The material's a little bit more solid, a little bit nicer, but that's what's to be expected since this pump is a little bit more expensive. So we'll move this one out of the way and look at this one first. Basically, the controller has 3 buttons. It's got the mode button, the set button, and then the option power button. If you want to turn the pump off, just hit the power button, it goes off. It goes back on when you hit it on. So the mode button will change to different modes. You basically know what mode you're on by what color this dial is. So if you hit the mode button, the color will change, and that will change the modes. So this, not only does this let you know what mode it's on, but this also changes the speed. So as you can see, you just change it up and down depending on what you want for your tank, and hit set, and you're good to go. So right now this actually went to one of the wave modes, and as you can see, what it's doing right now is this just shows the wave ramping up, and then when it hits the top it'll stop and then do it again. So this pump controller is very user friendly, and it's also really easy to navigate. You just kind of have to get the hang of it, but once you do, it's real easy to switch back and forth. Real easy to switch, how strong or how weak you want the pump, and it's just a very major selling point, in my opinion, for the MP10 system, the easiness use for the controller. I'll show you some of the different modes you can use. The purple modes are the tidal swell mode and the nutrient transport mode. These modes are primarily meant to be used with more than one MP10 pump. You kind of put one on master mode and one on slave mode, and they'll work in unison to create, really cool patterns in the tank. But this is more if you have two of them. Since I only have one, I normally spend most of my time in reef crest mode. And what's nice about the diagrams is it can kind of show you what your pump is basically doing, how it ramps up, then it'll drop down, and just shows you basically what the pump is doing in each mode. So you've got also lagoonal mode, which is more of a gentle, just kind of gradual. So there's those four, and then you've got the blue, which we were just on, shows you the short pulse, where it ramps up, plateaus, and then goes down and does it all over again. And then the pink mode, which is just a long pulse, where the duration is just a little bit longer. But great controller. It's very easy to use. Once again, it lets you know, really simply which mode you're on. It lets you know the speed that the pump's currently at, and just a very solid addition to the system. So that's the MP10 controller. Let's look at the Jebao controller really quickly. Okay guys, so here is a look at the Jebao controller while it's on. It's basically got two buttons. You've got a mode button, which will switch between the different modes, and then you've got a speed button, which will switch between the different speeds right here. So starting with the speeds, right now I have it on S3, which is actually the lowest speed. S1 is the high speed, S2 is the middle speed, and like I said, low. So it's a very strong pump actually. So I keep it primarily on the low speed. But anyways, this will switch between the different modes. Basically, H1, H2, and H3 are a constant flow speed. H1 is the strongest, H2 is middle, and H3 is the weakest. So in these modes, it's just on stream mode, and it's just depending on how much power you want. The W1, W2, and W3 mode are the pulse modes, which basically create the standing wave. And in order to mess with those, you would use this blue control dial right here. And this basically increases or decreases the frequency of the pulses. Right now, since it's on low, it pulses really fast. If you want to increase the length of the pulse, all you got to do is dial it up, and it will make the pump spin longer. So else mode is basically a random flow mode. It just switches between the various speeds and settings. Some people like that mode. I found I don't really like it that much. I like to stay in the W1 mode if I'm using this pump. But as far as quality, it's kind of cheap feeling. It's very light, and the input and output cords are kind of flimsy. But overall, it's still functional. I mean, it's easy to dial in and out what wave speeds you want just by using this blue dial and switching the speeds. So I mean, it's easy to use and very simple. It's just not to the same quality as the MP10 controller, but still functional. So anyways, that's what the controllers look like for both pumps. Let's go ahead and look at the in-tank appearance of both pumps now. Okay guys, so here are the two pumps inside the tank. The one in front is the Vortech MP10, and the one in back is the Jebao WP-25. As you can see just from a profile view of the power heads, you can see how much smaller the MP10 is. As you can see, my tail spot blending seems to have found a home inside the WP-25 right now. Obviously the pump is not on, or he'd be not as happy as he is right now at his new little hiding spot. Note to consumer, tail spot Benny does not come standard with the purchase of a WP-25. But anyways, so as you can see, this is a much smaller footprint inside the tank, simply because of the the cool design that Vortex have. The wet side with the propellers on one side of the tank, the magnet mount, and then the motor dry side is on the outside of the tank with the cord on the outside of the tank. So that is one of the the awesome features about the MP10, which most people know about. It's one of the reasons I love them, because just for the aesthetic appeal of no cord inside the tank, that's a major plus to me. But as my blending has returned, you can see the WP-25 back there. It kind of looks like a Tunzi NanoStream as far as the appearance, but it functions more like a Vortex. So I think that's one of the reasons you have to get them outside the United States. There's some sort of patent lawsuit going on right now with the company just because they look so similar to the Tunzi pumps. But as you can see, it's got the cord inside the tank right there, and then going to the outside, here is the magnet mount for this one. So this has got the dry side, This one's just got the magnet. Although that is one thing to consider if you're trying to cram this tank into a corner or really close against a wall. You do have to account for the 2 or 3 inches you need to put the dry side of the Vortech on the tank glass. That is something to consider when trying to choose if you're thinking about either of these pumps. But yeah, that's what they both look like inside the tank. Obviously this one is smaller, so this would be a little bit more suitable to a nano tank. If you're trying to put something like this WP-25 in a a standard 10-gallon tank, it would probably look humongous. So anyways, as you can see, they are both powered down, and now I'm going to power them up one at a time so you can kind of see what they look like, what they sound like, and I'm going to put it both on one of the wave modes so you can kind of see a similar function. So give me a sec, we're going to turn the Vortech on first, and I'll show you guys what it can do. Okay guys, so now we just have the MP10 on by itself. You can see the wave motion up at the top right here. A good indicator is looking at some of the Zoas and Pallies. These are about 30 inches, I'd say, from the power head. And you can see, based off the movement that they have right now, that they're getting pretty good flow, even 30 inches or so away from the power head. But the best way to describe it really is there's not a whole lot of surface agitation, but it's kind of like just like a wall of water that moves across the tank. Basically you have, you've got water getting sucked in from the top and water getting sucked in from the bottom. So it sucks it all in and then kind of pushes like a V out across the tank. So it's a very wide dispersed flow. Seems to do the job. Right now, as you can see, this is what the controller looks like when it's in wave mode. Just pulses like that. So I'm going to put the camera right up next to the dry side motor so you guys can hear the sound that it makes when it's in this mode. So that's about how loud it is. That's at about 95%, so it gets a little bit louder. But once again, the one thing about it is with the dry side being outside the water, it means there's no heat transfer to the water, but also there's no water to dampen the sound of the motor that's whirring inside the housing right there. So anyways, that's what it does to the tank. And let me go ahead and shut this off, and I'll turn on the Jebao WP-25 so you guys can see what that does. Okay guys, so now the MP10 is off and just the WP-25 by Jebao is on. You can see the propeller back there moving on and off. And backing it up, you can see it's got very, very strong surface agitation right now. Get a look at these corals. You can see they are blowing pretty good. Same as the ones up here. And looking down at the controller right now, I am on Wave 1 mode, and I'm only on the lowest setting. I'm on S3, which is actually the lowest. So if I ramp it up to S2, that's the next highest setting. That's going to turn the pump on stronger. And you can see we're starting to get a lot of surface movement, especially down here where it's hitting the glass and rebounding. You can see very, very strong movement. This is a very focused and strong little pump despite its size. So if I go down again and go to S1, which is at its max, now you can see we're really getting some good output. It's just one of those things where, like, the best way that I can describe it is, like I was saying, the Vortech is kind of like a diffuse wall of water. This one's more of like a fire hose, like, because the nozzle is much narrower, the output stream is much more focused. So it's very strong, especially right here. Like if a fish was to hit right in here for that, they would get blown all the way across the tank. So once again, this is a 40 breeder, so it's 36 inches long, and you can see how strong the flow is from this WP-25. So from just output alone, this is a workhorse of a pump. Very strong, very powerful. One thing I will note is I've had this pump a lot longer and I've had no problems. I've only had this pump a couple of days, so one thing that I won't be able to speak to is the durability of either pump, really. But I have heard reports of these kind of crapping out on people within 6 months. You just saw my tail swap when I get blasted. I can't speak to how long these things last. I've heard of some people online saying they, crapped out on them after 6 months. Some people said they've been running for close to a year with no problems whatsoever. So, I can't speak to those issues yet. I can definitely do a video later on of how the pumps are still doing after a longer length of time. But so it does appear, at least to the eye, that the WP-25, from just a pure output standpoint, is a little bit more powerful than the MP10 is. And I've seen videos of these on 75-gallon tanks and even 125-gallon tanks, where they're still putting out just as much power. You can see how strong the wave is and how much up and down motion we got going on here. So let me show you one more thing to consider with this pump. Give me 2 seconds to change the modes here. If I just go to H1, which is a strong mode here. Okay, so now it's just a straight speed. If you do have a sand bed, as you can see, you do start to get some excavating. It does happen like it's hitting here, and you can see it's going down along the glass. And then slowly but surely we are excavating the bottom. You can see the sand is just rolling along. So it is very strong if you do the focused H1 mode. And as you can see, I am creating a miniature sandstorm right now. So that is another thing to consider if you do have a deep sand bed, or especially if you have very fine sand. Like this is actually kind of a bigger grain sand. And as you can see, that's still moving pretty good. So if you have fine sugar grade sand, you are going to create a snow globe basically in your aquarium if you use some of the higher powered modes. So that is just one more thing to consider when picking between these pumps. So let me go ahead and turn this pump off so I don't create a big hole in my sand bed, and I'll get back to you guys. Okay, YouTube, now that you've seen both pumps in action, you've seen the controllers, you've seen the footprint inside the tank, I'm going to go over what I like about both pumps, what I don't like so much about both pumps, and then you guys can make your own decisions about which wave maker you might like, depending on what you're looking for. We'll start with the Vortech MP10. The main thing that I like about it, and the whole reason I wanted it in the first place, is, as shown on the box, the very cool design. You've only got the wet side that's in the water, and then the dry side with the cords on the outside of the tank. That design was just a major selling point to me. It makes it look so much sleeker and cleaner inside the tank, and it's just one of the reasons I fell in love with these pumps. Another thing I like about them is it's got a nice wide flow, so it's very suitable for my 40 breeders width, which is 18, which is front to back, so that helps. It would definitely be a nice pump for a cube tank, that it have maybe a little bit bigger width than the standard tank sizes. And also, the controller is just amazing. I love the controller to the MP10. It's so easy to use. You can do so many different modes. So that's definitely, a thing I like about the MP10. One of the downsides, like I showed you guys, it does, or it can be loud, depending on what mode you're on and how strong you have the pump. As you might have heard, when you ramp it up, to almost 100%, and on short intervals, that can be an issue to some people that are noise sensitive and that want a quiet tank. That just puts some people off. And that's because, like I said in the video, the motor's on the outside, so it's not dampened by the, the water. So that could be a downside that I would, think some people might have an issue with. And of course, like I mentioned in the very beginning of the video, the price. It's just an expensive pump. Obviously, if you have a ton of money, or you're very well off, that's not really an issue to you. But for some budget-minded people, or people that maybe are younger or just starting out in the hobby, it could be out of their price range. So that is one possible, another possible downside to the pump. But overall, a solid pump. I will say that I've been very happy with my experiences with the pump so far, and I've had no issues with it, and really do like this pump. Moving over to the Jebao WP-25, the things I do like about it are it's very strong. As you saw, it has more than enough horsepower to cross this 40 breeder 36 inches in length. No problem. The price is great. As I mentioned in the first part of the video, it's only $70. So for what you're getting for $70, you have to be happy about that. As far as the controllability and the fact that you can create different standing waves and different patterns. Obviously, the things that I dislike are the things I like about the MP10. This pump, it is in the water, so it is bigger. It does have the cord in there, so the aesthetic appeal is not quite as nice. And I have heard some durability issues with these pumps. Like I said, I can't speak to those yet, but some people have mentioned that as a a downside. They don't last very long. But I can't speak to that as of yet. But overall, both pumps are great pumps, at least in my experience. Depending on how you want to use them, I think you can't go wrong with either pump. It just depends on what your likes and dislikes are, and what you need out of a wave maker. So anyways, I'm going to close this video down. If you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead and put them down below, and I'll try to answer them as quickly as I can. I hope you found this video informational and helpful, and that's about all I got for you guys. So thanks for watching, y'all. Really appreciate it. Peace out.